Hey everyone, my name is Sid, and in this video I am going to be explaining the Bingo Highway skip, which will get you from here, about 25 to 30 seconds into the stage, all the way to the goal ring at the end. The basics of this glitch are based on pinball table launching, which I have explained in a different video, but it's just a little bit more involved. There's more AI manipulation and all that going on, so let's go over it step by step. To start off with, you're going to want to jump on this wide railing. Easiest formation to do that in is with flight formations, just because you have the most control, and if you fall off you can fly back up, so easiest and safest, just like that. After that, you're going to want to switch to Knuckles and drop off your teammates to kind of start the pinball table launch. Now, after 3 seconds, they will respond to the back left and the back right of you. This is only the case with the triangle dive method and not with the fire dunk method, because with fire dunk they would just return manually, as you saw right there. Also, the fire dunk tends to target these springs, so that's kind of bad. So yeah, triangle dive method it is. Anyway, keep these positions that they respawn in mind, by the way. They are going to be very important. Sonic will go back to the back left of you, and Tails will teleport back to the back right of you. So before they get the chance to do that, you're going to want to turn this way. Now, as you can see, Sonic returned just fine. Tails, however, did not have any ground to teleport back to, so instead he is stored way off into the distance of the level. Now, this is the exact position that we want him in, because from that position we can basically get to the goal ring after we have done the other parts of the skip. Now, it is very important that for the remainder of the skip you're going to want to, at least for most of the steps, you're going to want to make sure that there is no ground to the back right of you for Tails to respawn on. The moment you give him any ground whatsoever, he teleports back, as you can see right there. So yeah, we are going to want to keep him into that store state for the vast majority of this skip. So, next up we're going to be jumping onto the pinball table. Again, to do this, you're going to want to turn in a specific way, so that you make sure that Tails does not have any ground to respawn on during your jump. So yeah, let's go. Nice turn, and there we go. We landed on the pinball table at about 350, and you're gonna want to stay on it for about 30 seconds. So you get off this pinball table at 420. Hew. Now, during this time that you spend on the pinball table, you'll also be manipulating Tails' position in his stored state, like way off into the distance. And more specifically, you're going to be doing that as you bounce on these springs, because the way you manipulate him is with the control stick, but you also control your other two characters with the control stick, so you kinda gotta make sure that your other two characters don't go anywhere. And fortunately enough, the springs that are right here, they actually lock your movement for a certain amount of time. So after you first hit them, you can hold forward for a couple of seconds to manipulate Tails' movement, and then just let go of the control stick in time, so that you can just land right back onto the spring and keep doing that for about 30 seconds. After which you will get off the pinball table. So let's do that. During this time, it is also important that Sonic either lands on that platform or is completely in sync with you, so that he will land back onto the platform with you after those 30 seconds, because he is going to be you need to have him on that platform for the next part of that skip. Anyway, so yeah, just keep manipulating Tails' position until we stay on it for 30 seconds, and there we go. Now, for the next part of the skip, we are going to land back on the platform, and then we have a 3-second window in which we can perform the next step, which is jumping back onto the railing and doing a punch. After this punch, you can take however long you want with the rest of the setup, but for this specific part you only have the 3 seconds, otherwise Tails will respawn back into his normal position. So yeah, let's go do that right now. Jump onto the railing and punch. Now at this point it doesn't really matter what you do. The only step that is left is to jump in order to get Sonic back off your hands, which we need him to be for the next part of the skip to work. And then the last one, the punch back onto the table to actually trigger the pinball table launch. Alright, so the way you want to either approach the table is to angle yourself a little bit like this, but again, make sure there is no ground to the back right of you for tails to land on. Or you can just punch straight forward and fling yourself off to the right. I personally prefer this method, but it's kind of up to you. It also kind of depends on where on the white railing you landed, which method you can actually do. But yeah. So the final part of this is you punch back onto the table, you land on the table, and then after that you'll immediately switch to tails. Like so. Now we ended up, because of the way character switching on pinball tables work, we ended up where tails was being stored, way off into the out of bounds area. At this part there are usually not really any kill planes you have to worry about anymore, but they will become an issue if you don't navigate the out of bounds properly after this, but don't worry, the out of bounds navigation is pretty easy. First off though, we are going to wait about 3 seconds for Sonic and Knuckles to join us like that. And with that, it is time for the last part of the skip. Now, as you can see, they return to us at about 5:28. This again is a somewhat important timestamp to keep in mind, because we are going to be searching for our visual cue next in the background, and then we're just gonna hold forward and fly towards that visual cue for about 30 to 35 seconds, depending on how fast you found the visual cue. Now the visual cue that you want is the roulette table and the slots with the 3 white 7s in the background right here. However, you do not want the first set of these this roulette table and white 7s that you come across. Instead, you want to keep going and go to the second one. And then you just hold forward for about 30 to 35 seconds. This is where I would put elevator music if I had it. So let's see, that is about 30 seconds, just like that. And right by about now we should be close to the end of the stage, so at this point you are going to want to move your camera around a bit with the C-stick to kind of locate where you are in the stage and try to find the end of the stage. Now there are some good visual cues, which is like if you like look to the right or to the back right of you, you can usually see the pinball table, or the bingo table rather, the final bingo table. And the other visual cue that you're going to want to be looking for the end of the stage is the aerial bingo at the end of the stage that's like right above the goal ring. If you want, you can even try to get bingo along the way, but yeah, that's entirely up to you. So yeah, let's go look for the end of the stage. Alright, it looks like we had to keep going for a little while longer, so I just kept holding bottom right on my control stick as I turn my camera to the to look to the back right of me, just to make sure that I kept going into the right direction. As long as you just follow these instructions properly, you should not have any run-ins with kill planes or whatsoever, so that should be a-okay. But yeah, now we've found the final bingo table. This right here is the aerial bingo I was talking about, and now it's just a matter of falling down to the goal ring. And there you go. That is the bingo highway skip. Next up, I want to talk about some of the things that can go wrong during this skip. There's a lot of steps to it, so you know, there's a lot of opportunities to make mistakes, and I want to go over some of the more common ones that can happen to kind of explain what happens and how to remedy that. So the first thing that will probably go wrong at any point is you will try to jump onto the table and Tails will respawn just like that. As you can see, Tails is right back to the back of there, and that was simply a case of me jumping, you know, too far towards the inside of the pinball table, giving Tails room to the back right of me for him to spawn on. In this case, he could actually spawn directly onto the pinball table. So as long as you kind of try to aim for that gray line for your initial landing, that should be a-okay. The next common mistake that can happen once again involves tails coming back at some point, and this time it is after you're finished bouncing and you jump back onto the white railing and you punched. So yeah. Right now, as you can see, I'm in a very awkward position, and if I were to try and angle myself to jump onto the bingo table, then tails would almost surely, you know, respawn to the back right of me. So instead, what you can do to fix something like this is you can jump and you can position yourself like in the midair anytime you want. Tails will not be able to respawn in midair. You can pretty much do a full circle right there without tails respawning in order to reposition yourself. It's also not a big deal that there is the bingo table to the right, back right here for me, because tails will not respawn on that in this state, fortunately for us. So one of the other things that can go wrong here is that you get stuck on this white railing right here. The hitbox of it is quite janky, and sometimes when you try to angle your punch onto the table, like the final punch, yeah, you can get a little bit stuck. Now, in order to... You can't really do anything to fix this, it just kind of happens sometimes, but it is very easy to prevent it from actually killing you by just basically positioning yourself on the rail nicely. Around somewhere like this position, like even if you get stuck here, you will still be able to get onto the table like that. And a good way to do this is, let's say you're using this spring, which usually ends up being the case. You just, before you land, go slightly off to the right, then go back to the railing, and then by the time your punch finishes, you're just about here. So even if you get stuck, you can easily just fall onto this part of the table and then instantly switch your tails. It is that easy. Then there is the mistake that I see happen most of the time when people are new to learning this skip, and that is once again for the final punch of the setup before switching the tails. You kind of do the setup like this, and as soon as you punch on the table, you switch the tails, and tails comes back. Rather than actually going to where tails is, tails ends up on the table. And that is quite simply a case of you switching to flight formation too soon. If you switch to flight formation before Knuckles actually touches the table, then you will switch to flight formation in that exact position first thing as you touch the table. So really it is just a case of punching on the table, land, and then switch. Very important detail. Now, one of the last things that I can think of that can happen that is good to be aware of is this. You will end up with just the power character after switching to the flight character. Now, this, I have actually no idea why it happens, and just getting it to happen for this video was quite the pain in the ass, but it doesn't really happen that much. It seems to happen more with Team Dark or Team Sonic. And honestly, it is not that big a deal. You can just continue on and do almost the exact thing as normal. As a matter of fact, if you ever had trouble with hitting kill planes or something along the way, for whatever reason, then this will no longer be an issue, because this state is called power in flight formation. Rouge and Shadow are still back wherever Rouge was spawned, and all of the draw distance is on Rouge, so none of the kill planes are actually spawned in. But this also means that none of the bingo charts for the aerial bingo thing are spawned in either. So this means you're gonna have one less visual cue to work with. You're just gonna have to base your position based on the actual stage itself. You can still see the actual stage, so don't worry about that. But yeah, it is good to be aware of, and right now I'm gonna try to land it with the power in flight. It's also important that you switch to power before landing, otherwise you will end up wherever Rouge is at the moment you land. But this way you could just stay as power formation from the moment you land and everything should be okay. So yeah, as you can see, there's the stage right there. There are some kill planes around that thing. I wouldn't have no problem with them though in this state. And since I don't have the actual bingo charts to work with, I'm gonna have to base it on the stage right here. And ta-da! Just like that. You can still very much make it to the goal ring. So yeah, that's all of the things I can really think of that I struggled with at some point, or that I've seen other people struggle with that are good to be aware of. If you have any problems with anything else, feel free to hit me up. But for now, this is gonna be it for the bingo highway skip. So yeah, good luck, have fun, and yeah, if you need anything else, you know where to find me. At the close of the video, I'll show you a full bingo highway skip as you would see it in a run. Just so you have a good idea of what it looks like. Ciao.
There they are!
Eggman's robot!
Leave them to me, Sonic. Got it! Shit! Shit!
Leave it to me. All right!
Perfect!